Hello. Ooh, must turn over to me. There I am. Hello and welcome. That amazing start. It's another live stream and it's a new year, 2025. I don't know what happened to 2024. It flew past. So welcome to everybody in chat. I've seen a lot of the usuals. Jaw21 just snuck in there. And am I okay? Oh! Thanks, Tim. I had to reset the iPhone camera again, and obviously it brought it in with microphone on iPhone, microphone here. So, whoo, excellent. So anyway, hello and welcome to everybody, especially those in chat. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. I hope you all got something exciting and modelling for Christmas. To be fair, I mostly got money to pay to do the modelling full time because that's what I do. So thanks, Tim. He's my chat helper telling me that I'm not echoing anymore. But yeah, here I am. New year, new ideas, loads to do, and we'll be talking more about that later. But first up, hello to Timber, Digger. I've definitely seen Digger in chat, and I normally have Norm, but I've not heard back from Norm, so I hope he's okay. Norm, if you aren't okay, I'm really sorry, and I hope you get better soon. If you are okay, we miss you. But thanks to Digger and Timber, who are always great at moderating and just throwing out any of those nasty chat bots that come in, and anybody who says anything rude about my hair. I think I saw a comment on it once. So hi Stephen, good to have you here. No nighttime working then. It has been, I feel like it's just been so busy, but I've not actually been doing any modelling. My mum had a knee operation, she's 81, she had a total knee replacement a week ago. So I'm spending a lot, and I mean a lot of time. But my dad's up, thankfully, visiting, and he is doing a lot of the nighttime pills and stuff like that. So it's been really good. Obviously, it's very painful. The anaesthetic knocked her out completely. So she's recovering well and getting used to walking around on her new knee, but everything's really swollen and painful still. So that is taking a lot of my time. And the only thing that I've really worked on since the new year started is rubbish. Now, if you're on my Discord, you'll know what I mean, or if you've seen it on Instagram. But I've been working on rubbish. Translation for those people who aren't British or people who use British words, like the New Zealanders and Australians who always understand it. But rubbish means trash or garbage. So I've been working a lot on rubbish piles, rubbish conveyor belts, just loads of rubbish. There's no other word to describe it. It's all just rubbish. That's what I've been working on. So, rubbish aside, it's for a new Kickstarter for Sewer District. But tonight we're going to be talking about an old project, Junk Room City. So first of all, let's see if anyone else has stuck into chat to say hello to. Hi James, nice to have you with us. And scenic rubbish. So this is it's obviously sci-fi rubbish, and it's in piles. And the thing that blew me, just my mind totally, was finally working out how to make it manifold. Now, if any of you design really big, complex models in Blender, then you will know how hard it is sometimes to get those models manifold. If you've sculpted, you've sometimes twisted the vertices. And I normally put it onto formware.co, which will sort it out for you. But once it gets over 50 meg, it doesn't work. And you can divide it up, but then you have to put it back together. And I tried dividing this, making it manifold, putting it back together, and then it would get worse, if anything, when I put it back together. And it's a sort of 80 to 160 meg model, depending which version it's in. And in the end, I put it all together and put on a remesh modifier, which took like 10 seconds. And then I put on a decimate 0.1 to take it back down in size because it was way too big, which took a few minutes to calculate because it's a big model, even with my 64 gig, and it fixed it. And I'm like, I spent a week trying to work out the best way in Blender to scatter rubbish around. It was just over Christmas, so it was more playing with displacement node, there's a lot of nodes that you can have, geometry nodes in Blender, so I spent time playing with those, scatter objects, but they kept intersecting through. In the end, I did it all by hand. So That has been my excitement. Rubbish and trash and garbage. Stephen says, Mary's still been waiting for word on a hip replacement. That's 4 years. So it took us 2 years to get the GP to even give mum appointments about it. The first GP just said, well, you're old, you should expect it to hurt. Subsequently, you know, they were a bit like, yeah, we'll do a scan, but they wouldn't do anything. So in the end, after 2 years, we finally got a nice GP who said, yeah, you need a knee replacement. So we gave up at that point and went private. And we saw the consultant, which we booked online, within a week. And that was the 5th of December. And she had the operation on the 4th of Jan. So, you know, after 2 years waiting, she can't walk on it. It gives way. She's in agony all the time. It just had to happen. So, you know, I know there's an NHS and we should rely on it. But realistically, she's 81 and didn't want to wait 2-3 years for her to get a new knee while she can't walk. You know, it was really affecting her life. So yeah, there we go. It's done now. It went really well. It's just all the after effects of, you know, anaesthetics and stuff like that. She kept falling asleep in the middle of me talking. Who'd do that? So Snow Tato, extra large. Hi chat. Well, hi you. Hi Snow Tato. And just stopping by for a little, well, catch up what I'm up to. James says, I very much approve of Blender. I approve of Blender. A, it's free, although I have bought a number of add-ons for it. B, it's free. C, it's really powerful. The only downside to Blender is it's so powerful, it can be hard sometimes to work out what to do, you know, or how to do it. So I tried about 4 or 5 different methods to scatter rubbish. I mentioned geometry nodes. I tried a different type of something where you did a particle array. This is how people stack rocks, apparently. I did a particle thing in a mound and then dropped them. I tried an animated dropping so they would pile up, but I found they kept interfering with each other. And then if I put them on mesh rather than convex, whatever it was, then they didn't settle onto each other. In the end, I just created a mound with a displacement map of rubbish on it and then hand put them all to be good orientations for printing. Because, you know, if you've got something with bits sticking out and it's sticking down, it won't print. So it took me a lot of time. It took me a week of playing, and I was trying at this point over Christmas, just playing really. So I spent a week of playing and I tried 4 or 5 different methods before I hand arranged them all, and then spent 5 days on and off because Mum was in hospital for 3 of those. She was in for 3 nights, so she's in for 4 of those days trying to get it manifold. So, and I spent a lot of time in hospital. So yeah, but I really approve of Blender. It is, I think, like Blender as well. I know some people prefer more CAD style programs, but I very much think like Blender. So Snotato says, also I haven't seen Elle in so long. I wonder what she's cooking up. I haven't really been paying attention, but I haven't noticed anything come through on Patreon about it either. So I don't know. Be interesting to see. The NHS is on its knees, pardon the pun. Yeah, it is in some ways. And I think that needs a lot of cash to fix, which of course means more taxes. And hey, we're not talking politics tonight. Hi, Valleys 56XX. Good evening. Nice to have you with us. And Steve Cameron, we had the burning of the Clavey in Berghead last night. It's like up Heliar in Shetland, only a lot smaller. I hope it's a Clavey. I'm thinking of Claymore when I say that. So yeah, I remember watching Up Heliar on Blue Peter, I think it was, where they went and watched them do Up Heliar, which is really exciting. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's where the Vikings used to burn ships and set them adrift. And people still do it because setting boats at alight is fun. Valleys 56XX says, I used to use Maya 3D for animation, a very powerful program but extremely complicated to become proficient. Yeah, Second Dynasty, who I'm a huge fan of, and he's a good friend, Ben, he was in animation before and he uses Maya 3D to do all of his 3D print design, partly because by the time you've learnt it, it's too much then to move to another program. So even though Blender's free and Maya costs him a lot of money, he still sticks with it because he knows it. Oh, Digger remembers it on Blue Peter too. I'm not the only one. So, what time is it? I have remembered to save this on my hard drive. I have to talk about my big project, which if you were on the last live stream, you'll have seen coming up. And I'm going to put it on in the background. Now, apologies, I've been rather distracted this week and I forgot to trim the video starts and ends. So there'll be a lot of wob. It's fast forwarded, but this is a slow-mo video. So this is probably not far off real speed. Well, it looks a bit sped up, but it was actually a slow-mo video, which is why it's so long. So there will be a lot of quite cacky video editing. Really sorry. This is eventually going to be a YouTube video that takes 10 minutes, but it'll be quite a few live streams in between. And I'm going to be talking a lot about some of the various challenges I've had on doing such a big project. Now, a lot of us do really, really big projects. And I realised you can't see me anymore. That's because this iOS camera, maybe if I refresh it, reconnected device, no. I have to delete the iOS camera out every time I go into this. So this is just me re-adding in iOS. I should just be able to use 5. Okay. Oh, there we go. Right, there we go. I've appeared again. Right. So where's probably the least offensive part? Up there. So gotta love the tech quality on this. I haven't been with it this week. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. I sat down on Tuesday to work and the phone rang and it was my dad going, this is at 10 to 9. My sister's got a social work visit. My sister's handicapped. And did we want to go for the annual review? We were like, we should go. And that was in an hour. So go over to Trishy's. And then she wanted her bathroom cabinet going up, but we realised we needed a hammer to nail the bits on the back. So we came home and went out for lunch and got the hammer, went back and realised that we were missing, the screws were too short because I'd taken 1.5 inches, which is fine normally for a wall, but there's 1 inch in the cabinet, so there's only 1/2 inch in the wall. So we came back and I found some 2.5-inch screws, I think, at home. So I went back and did that at 8 o'clock at night. And then as soon as I sat down and boiled the kettle to make a cup of tea to do work in the afternoon, they rang from the hospital and said, oh, your mum's coming, or mum rang to say, oh, I'm coming out now. So I then went over and spent 1.5 hours at the hospital, then got her home, sorted her out. We had to resort the house around and stuff. I was just like, eventually I was just like, I'm giving up. It was 4:30 by the time I got rid of that. So Tuesday just went. But, there's no point being self-employed if you can't be around when your family need you, I think is the point. So it's definitely important to be here. Jeffrey says the dusty bin is back. Yep, the paint does not come off. And there's a very dusty patio at the end of this. It's not a huge jigsaw. It's a cheap one. It was like 20 quid, I think, or 29, 25 quid, 24 quid. I had one and I got rid of it and kept the mouse sander. And in my head, I thought I'd got rid of the mouse sander and kept this jigsaw. So I bought another mouse sander. So I have 2 mouse sanders and I didn't have a jigsaw. And also I had a lot of stuff I sorted out the garage because I ran out of space that I probably should have kept. And that was one of the things. So there we go. Ravison Express is here. Jules says you look scared of that jigsaw. I've put my, how do I look? Yeah, I'm not a fan of power tools that can run away and take off bits of you. Like, not a fan at all. Yeah, so that's, will keep me over. And also I talk to myself. I really hate watching me. I don't know if I'm talking to myself. There's no one else to talk to when I'm doing this. Or maybe I just wibble my lips a lot, but it certainly looks really weird whenever I watch myself concentrating on things because my mouth's never firm. And now you're all going to see it because I've said it. So James Aaron here, Paul's friend, how are you? Oh, good to have people who know each other in chat, always makes it good. Stating the obvious, it's like a professional TV production channel for early 90s. It is, isn't it? So it's another slow-mo, I think, looking at that. Look at that, and this is sped up. So I don't know whether, it probably is. Graham says, never get scared of a jigsaw, take your time. The first ones I cut, I made the mistake of drawing the first one, then using that, cutting it, and then using it as the circle for the next one, so they all lined up. And I forgot, and I was out of alignment by actually a few millimetres. on the shelves. So nothing quite lined up when I came to put the threaded rod, which we'll see later through. So I actually then had to cut extra slots in so that I could get it to work. And you'll probably see that in a minute, because I suspect I may or may not have videoed it. So I ended up cutting in extra slots so that I had a bit of back and forth sliding. Front to back wasn't a problem, but side to side was. And I've had quite a few issues really with just cutting. So these shelves were cut by Selco, and they all measure beautifully the right amount. The trouble is they're not actually square. So front to back, there's probably about 5mm difference. And when I sorted this, when I did the sizes, I couldn't make them too big because they then wouldn't have fitted next to each other with the existing shelves where they overlap. And there are a couple where they butt up. So as a result, and there's only a 12.5mm overlap onto the bits that you screw into. As a result, that skew and measuring and all these issues has meant when I came to put the actual shelves in, there's hardly any overlap on the 3-foot ones. There's a 4-foot section on the left, and then a 3-foot section in the middle, and then a to be determined section on the right that's a couple of foot but not square. And so I've had a lot of problems actually with this. The circles on the next set, I measured from the right hand side each time and hoped I'd got them all the same way around, but I measured in the middle more or less, where hopefully the non-square kind of offsets a bit. And I know you're supposed to allow 5mm when things go, but I kind of allowed 5mm on the big side, and I did loads of allowances for it to slip into the shelving. So it was already slightly undersized, I think, and then it cut smaller. And yeah, it's interesting. There's not a lot holding some of the shelves on in some instances, so not ideal. But at this point, I'm cutting circles, and sometimes you have to go completely up a blind alley before you realise you're lost. This was a complete mistake. All of the work that I'm doing now, I ended up having to redo because it wasn't right. And I'll explain more when we actually get it up onto the boards in a sec. Graham says never get scared of a jigsaw, take your time. Thanks. Snow Tato was alt-tabbed out, alt-tabbed back in, and noticed 2 cameras almost joining perfectly. That's cool. That's almost good. Yeah, no, I got you. Steam camera, middle aisle of Lidl special. Yeah, it's actually a Screwfix special. Titan saw, which is obviously, apparently last time I was on a live stream, someone said was a Scotsman's wallet, but I would not be rude about Scotsman. So whoever you were who said that last time. Anyway, this is now the same thing probably, but in normal speed, because when you do slow-mo on an iPhone, it goes fast and it goes slow, apparently. So you can see here, these are the smaller shelves at the top where the circle, it doesn't even go to the end to meet up with the uprights, which again is another issue. This is how I cut it the first time, and I think this is out of order, probably my date types. And I used the good old-fashioned pin with a bit of card and a pen. But I forgot to allow, there's 2 circles, I forgot to allow for the width. These are all cut slightly oversized, so that I'm going to drop a 3D print in the middle, and it's going to have quite a wide flange on it. So that then allows me to have a bit of play. Erinville, where's my protective gloves? I did have leather gloves on, and I think because I was going in and out and like cutting and marking and stuff, I think I didn't put them on this time. But the next day I did the cutting, I had to wait weeks before I got round to it, and it was like the sunny day in 3 weeks or something, and it wasn't raining, and I did have leather gloves on because it was like 7 degrees and I'd lost feeling in my toes by the time I finished. So when they snag, they do something you up. Not that I'm going to replete it and lose my adult kid-friendly rating. Tim, thankfully, says he talks to himself all the time and rarely gets a sensible answer. Oh, well, because I'm obviously agreeing with myself, it's always sensible whatever I say. Raverson then says, never use protective gloves when using a saw, that's really dangerous. I did have leather gloves on because I was cold when I was doing the next set. So Erenville asked, what's this project? And I'm assuming you watched our last live stream, but the run up to December is really busy. So, and like, who gets a chance to watch every live stream in life? So this is Junk Room City. Junk Room City is basically my answer to, where do I put all my models? Where do you put all your models? You want display space. Now, a large majority of my models that I'm making at the moment are sort of 32 to 35 mil. Could be 28 mil, but they're 32 to 35 mil. So they're all about 1/48. That's O scale for the railway modelers amongst you. And I wanted somewhere to put them, but I wanted to be able to expand into it. So this is like a flexible shelving unit, though to be fair, it's really hard to move the shelf brackets once everything else is in, just because it is, If you've got two in back to back because they're level, then it becomes really hard. But all of these are staggered. And because I've got 10 shelves on each side, I'm not really going to move the shelves much. But I can move the shelves, theoretically. If I discover in future I need to take one out, I'll be able to take a set of shelves out, for example. And, or one shelf out. And so what it is I've got a metal frame, which we looked at last time, which you'll see later on. And it's made of 25 mil steel with clips. We'll get to clip gate in a minute. And it's got these kind of metal with ABS outer sort of shapes that you put it into, and it holds it together. So Erenville says, talking to yourself is a good thing. We do it in our heads all the time and sometimes loudly. At least you have one person listening yourself. I do. This is a mistake. I should point that way really, shouldn't I? I could never point the other way. That is a mistake. Talk about that in a minute. Cutting a circle reminds me of those Tom and Jerry cartoons where Tom cuts out a hole in the floor and the whole floor apart from the hole collapses, says James. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Graham says, lol, there's a Scotsman here. Yeah, I can't think you said it last time. Well, I thought it was a Scotsman who actually said it. Snow Tato, I've always hated Tom and Jerry. As a cat guy, seeing cats get hurt, even fictional ones, is an Elmore and a half in my... Oh, bless. Yes, it's not good. Lee Lavery, finally... Oh, hi Lee, welcome to have you here. Finally getting around to attending a board game event tomorrow. Really excited. That's cool. I'm not into board games particularly, but I actually went to one of my local, it's a game society rather than just board games, and we ended up playing some random games I'd never heard of, and it was quite fun, but I just never went back because I think COVID had kind of happened, but it is quite fun. Was Elmore the right word to use? I wondered that, and that's why I petered out sort of saying what he was saying, because I really was... Yeah, okay. So anyway, he wanted to find a word for something that looks like a arrow to the left, arrow to the right, squiggle, arrow to the left. Turn off maybe? Anyway, we're moving on from chat because that's beginning to get confusing. And we're going to talk about dead ends. So I said this project in the title, when big projects get overwhelming. And what overwhelmed me with this project, and I suspect it won't be the only time I get overwhelmed by this, but in general, sometimes is you start with a blank canvas. I started with a frame and an idea and a concept, and I got the frame and I got the shelves and I cut the circles for 4 shelves. And then I was like, oh, I'm running out of time. I'm going to be back doing Kickstarters in the new year. I need to get some stuff done over Christmas. I need to get it printed and I need to get it put together because I can't put any other shelves in. Yeah. So let me say that a bit more slowly because it all snowballed for me. I started by putting in shelf number 8, which is the one at this height with a metal bar on the front that I whack my face on every time I go in there because it's the only bar going across at the moment. And that one has to go in first because the ones underneath it have nothing at the front holding them, and I decided I was going to put threaded rods in so that there was some rigidity, and the threaded rods can be taken out if I need to move shelves and things, or I can just move the nuts and move them up and down within. So that made it more modular, and I felt better about it. And these are holes, remember, so it was solid for the bottom 5, 6, 7 shelves, and then holes above that, and the last one that's solid has a ring landing pad on it from my first Kickstarter that I did. And I've got a sci-fi one and I've got a desert one. And then I was like, okay, so I've got all these shelves in my kitchen, taking up my kitchen. I want to do all the cutting on them. I want to get them painted. I want to get them in. And I can't get them in because I need to get the threaded rod in for these. I can't put it in from above because it's, there. Is the ceiling. I can't put it in from below if I put the other shelves in, so I'll need to get all this finished. Now, actually in hindsight, I came up with a better way later. So I drilled, this is plenty away from the granite, look how cracky I am at drilling. I'm really sorry, that is just horrendous drilling. No wonder they didn't line up. No wonder. Yeah, guys, I'm a girl. I'm just gonna say. I didn't realise how wonky it was till I looked at this video and I was really embarrassed. So anyway, after this, I learnt from this and I did things very differently for the next set of shelves. And these ones have changed quite a bit by the time they actually do go up. So I got these holes in and then I painted them black because they're going to be there for a long time before some of the shelves get their 3D print fascias and whatevers. And it's going to be a big city, going back to Erin's question. And it's a big sci-fi city, and each of these layers, like Coruscant, it's like a stacked city, and so there's layers upon layers upon layers, and each of these levels, and there's like 4,000 levels in this thing, and the main spaceport, which is shelf 8, is level 3,200, and at the bottom is my lava Kickstarter on the floor, and that's level 0. And I did this, I got it painted, and I went there. And I'll just come back with the story when we actually see it going in, and you can see the problems it was causing. But at the moment, I'm desperately trying to design 3D prints. You can see them in the background there. I was printing them on my Max print, my Plus printer, my Neptune 3 Plus, because I wanted those pieces to be structurally quite supportive. They've got holes in them for the threaded rod to go through. And I was panicking about getting it all done. But this wasn't supposed to be a project I got done in a month. This was a long-term storage project with each Kickstarter getting its own level, perhaps adding into existing levels, doing mix and match, having round the outside of each shelf a complete box of 3D prints with hanging ceilings and lighting in the ceiling, and then having like the sides as bits of city and the back as city with maybe fans in it and lights in it, and then fascias at the front to hide the front, and then lifts going up and down, all sorts. But as you can see here, I'm clipping every single clip. So I went to put the shelves in and I tried putting these in and I couldn't get them in. So this was something like the 20th of December. Some people break up for Christmas. So I rang the supplier and said, I can't get the clips to go in. Am I being a girl? Because I am a girl. They won't go in if there's 2 of them. They're just physically, I can't get them in. And what happened was, there's a flaw in the way they've manufactured these. And one of the tabs is too long. So when you clip them in, it pushes it sideways so it can fit. It's about 2 mil too long, so it's off. So if there's 2 of them, so I've got a left hand and a right hand shelf, there'll be a left hand and a right hand clip because they're handed. If I put 2 of them in, they go into the same vertical slot. Then you can't, because each of them needs to cross into the other because this lug's sitting out. So I rang the supplier, who aren't the manufacturer, and he looked at them and went and looked and said, I see what you mean. So he rang the manufacturer because he didn't have any slotted stuff in stock. And the manufacturer came back and said, yeah, we'll have them back off her and grind them down in the new year, or, she can sort them out herself and we'll credit the amount. And I bought 50 pairs I wanted of clips, 50 pairs of clips, which is actually excessive, but I wanted to be sure that I had enough. and I could add extras in, and there's twos wherever I can put twos in, but they're mostly singles on the shells on the sides, and they're just bent bits of metal with a rounded section that you click in. Needs pliers really for me to do it. So I'm looking at them as well thinking, I've got an awful lot of them. So anyway, he came back and he said, but we've tried it for you, and if you just clip the end off with tin snips, you saw my heavy duty cutters that I bought for piano wire, so they're really good. He says they fit fine. So they will wobble back and forth a bit if you cut them too short, and if you don't cut them short enough, you can't get them in because they just go sort of, you know. But I ended up snipping the tabs off. And I did everything I realised. And I realised they sent me 50 packs. And I thought they were expensive for a pair, considering they're just a bent bit of metal that's been stamped and then painted. But they sent me 50 packs. There are 10 in each pack. So I actually have 500 pairs when I only wanted 50 pairs. So I've got an awful lot of clips, which I don't need. And I've offered to send them back, and they've been very quiet about that. I think he's a bit like, we're not restocking these till the manufacturer sorts them, so I can't be bothered. So anyway, I should have a credit coming through on that any day soon. So I didn't pay eventually for the clips regardless, so I've got loads of free clips for the system. So, right, let's go see what chat's been saying. Oh, it's off screen. Okay. Snowtato, turn off maybe. Oh, they're still discussing what the word should have been. Right, Graham, need help. I've got 6 scale SAS Jeep, but I want to make into radio control. Can anyone help how I do that? Thanks. I don't actually know. My way of doing things like that is normally to buy an existing sort of chassis and convert it. So it's all been done, and then just put my 3D print around the existing chassis. But if you already have an SAS Jeep, I don't know how you'd do that. So there. So Lee says, yeah, he hasn't been to anything since COVID. Thought it was time to make an effort. Yeah. When I turned 40, which was quite a long time ago now, I decided I should do something that scared me. So I went climbing for about 9 months, which did scare me. But, you know, and it was okay, but it was a lot of hassle. And I'm like, I'd rather model. That was it. But yeah, I think sometimes you have to make an effort just to do things, don't you? Right, so Snowtato's giving some good advice. Look in the suspension assembly to see if it has enough space for motors first. And then there's a bit of back and forth, have you done it yourself? And personally, no, I just took a guess. So Graham says, Action Man size 2 foot in length. James says, I am not a competent woodworker. I'm so not a competent woodworker. The good thing one of my friends told me is you're planning to face everything in 3D print. So it doesn't matter how wonky your cuts are because you're going to cover them all up with time. I like the way he was thinking. So Tim says his drilling is wonky too. It's great. Is that why my wheels wobble? James says, I get my model railway layout baseboards made by a third party professionally. I actually got laser cut baseboards for that very same reason the last time I did a railway. James says, don't feel bad about wonky holes. We're all good at different things. Yeah, thank you. What about the steering? Is it rack and pinion? We're still back on the SAS Jeep. James says, some of us are even good at typing. He's had a couple of typos, bless, but I have so many typos now. James says, big projects can cause cognitive overload sometimes. It can, and sometimes I think I rush too much. Anyway, we'll talk about it a bit more in a minute and explain what this is. So, Stating says, professional carpenter, we've all been there. Hopefully you don't. But yeah, thank you. Digger says, I'm lucky my neighbour is a joiner and always happy to help, and his wife is a seamstress. Very good neighbours. That is very good neighbours. Though having said that, my neighbour has made my mum and me, and my sister was there as well for a bit, food while mum was in hospital. So we actually got 2 meals delivered, which was brilliant. So they're very good neighbours too. Graham says, if you can look up Dragon 1/6 scale, you'll see what it will look like. Sorry, I haven't got the plans in front of him. So we're on the SAS Jeep. Graham says, joinery is my second hobby. It's a good second hobby. It's just a very dirty hobby to do in the house, I find, which is why I'm cutting outside. And also it's a granite worktop. Wouldn't use power tools anywhere near there. So Snowtato says, rack and pinion basically means the steering wheel has a gear at the end of its tip standing on a serrated bar. James says, oops, clip overload. Yeah, it might be. Snowtato, I have 1/8 scale Lancia Delta built from a kit that came in fortnightly weekly issues, and that has rack and pinion steering. So Graham's like, still lost me, sorry I don't drive. I don't think, I drive and I couldn't tell you what kind of steering I have on my car, so I won't worry too much about that. In fact, I just know that my steering wheel works. So Aaronville says, I'm near the end of building my railway baseboard, or I should say my carpenter friend is. I pay him fish and chips, coffee, tea, biscuits, Guinness and some cash. I think that sounds like a good deal. So what we're doing at the moment is sticking extensions onto my 3D print, because I discovered after I had carefully spaced everything and measured it several times off the plans that my plans hadn't taken into account that the shelves that this was sitting between, this massive monstrosity here, which is the spaceport level, actually aren't 50mm apart like every other shelf with a 12mm board in between, because they're on the frames on a different clip. Instead of being in a sort of stick-in clip like I've been talking about, snipping the lugs off, it's actually just a bent bit of metal that goes over the metal frame, clicks down, and then it just rests on it. So because of that, I've been, good thing I bought like 6 tubes of Aldite before Christmas, I've been putting on these extensions. So these are big 2-day prints, each of these rounds, and the idea was that they were going to be something that a spaceship could fly through into the spaceport level. And because the threaded rod goes through the middle of them, I felt I had to get them done before I could do anything else. This is an example of my great video editing there. So here you can see it in space, and this is the threaded rod going in. Woohoo! This is the idea. And there's basically washer nut, you know, all the way, each side of it. And the idea is that these, when threaded up, make the shelving unit at the front, there's a 4-foot gap that's not supported, and there's only these little perforated clips. It makes it rest more on this metal frame shelf. So therefore, I wanted it in the middle to stop it sagging, and I was going to put this frame around it, these sort of doors that would be like spaceship doors, and it's all there. Now you note I'm standing in the middle of it to do some of this, because to reach the back you have to go inside the holes, and that's it going on there. That's what it would look like, except it kept falling off. In fact, it fell off and broke, may I say. It's really that unwieldy. Not this particular time, actually. When I had 2 of them together, I put them on and one of them fell off and it broke. So it was, yeah, it was, and this is where I discovered that my measuring was off by 5mm, because I'd forgotten that I had to offset one of them, and I'd done the 12.5mm different, but forgot that actually the other one is shorter to allow it to fit into the frame. So that was a measured 3 times, cut, well, someone else cut, and I forgot when I did the drill holes. So then I did the slots, which I think I'll get to next. But the idea here, you can see, is very good. It's going to be nice and rigid. It's not modular anymore. And now I can cut those down, but I can't get them in unless they're about 600 long, unless there's 600 space beneath. But my next shelf is only 150mm beneath, and it hasn't got a hole in it. And suddenly I had to finish these shelves. I needed to do ceilings. I actually printed a whole ceiling for one, and I really hated it. I hated that ceiling I printed. But it was for the spaceport level. Absolutely hated it. Learned a lot about what I didn't like. And actually what got me was, it's 3 foot by 4 foot, and I put a detail level on that would look good on a model, but on 3 foot by 4 foot, it looked like there was nothing on the ceiling. It was all really sparse, and there was loads on it. When you looked at it in Blender, it was a rainbow of colours when I had random on it. But yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, and look, that's how bad my measuring was. That's how far out I was. Whoops. Yeah. So this is me cutting holes to get the, yeah, I cut really well too. Woodworking, not my thing. So yeah, at this point I was feeling really uncertain. I felt rushed. I felt overwhelmed by how much I had to get done before I could clear all that wood. And it's a heated floor in my kitchen, so all this wood is being heated all the time by the kitchen heating. And I was just like, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I've now got too much to do. I can't get it done in time. I've got to design everything. And because I can't take it out in future, paint it and put it back, I have to paint it. It all has to be finished and weathered. I need to make decisions on lighting. I need to do all this, and I need to do it all before Christmas ends because I want to get the wood off my floor. And I was really, really struggling. Hi Bill, Willy Waste. At work again, so like last stream, I can't stay. Just popped on to wish Kathy and all the viewers out in YouTube land a very happy, prosperous new year 2025. Thanks, Bill. That means a lot. Thank you. And yep, I've said Happy New Year, but it's good to say it again. Happy New Modelling Year. I had a slogan for Mum, New Year, New Me. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Tim says, for very small RC, radio control, try using Micron radio control. Stephen says, we live next door to a joiner and he's so busy we can hardly get hold of him. Yeah, I live next door to a roofer, but I ended up getting a different roofer on when I actually needed, well, not me personally, my mum lives next door to a roofer. And I still ended up getting someone else. Tim, look it up on Google. Russ, rocking O and HO trains. Hi, Russ. Hi from across the pond. Yeah, I am working on Junk Room City. So, Junk Room City, we're on the halfway through recap really, is a shelving unit which is going to be completely faced in 3D prints and look like a giant sci-fi city from top to bottom. It is about 8, it's about 9 foot long, about 8 foot high and 3 foot deep. So there we go. So Jane, and it's a display thing. I think this would work really well for anybody who does sci-fi. I'm not sure for model railways you would want it to be as closed in as I'm going to do it, but actually it could be an interesting way because you can move these shelves in and out, or you could put them on the metal frames if you were more certain. It could be an interesting way of storing model railways, I think, because it's a really solid metal frame. Things being huge is one of the disadvantages of modelling on a larger scale, says James. Yes, but as you get older, you can see it. It's really good, really good. So, heated floor luxury, says James. Yeah, I had the kitchen extension done in 08, 09, somewhere around there. And there weren't really many walls to put a radiator on, and there weren't any walls at all in the utility. And because I was having it all done from scratch, it was as easy to put in underfloor heating as it was to do radiators, though obviously not as cheap. So it worked. It's worked really well. I do like it, but it is slow to heat up. So if it's cold in the morning, it will be several hours before it really starts warming up. So overnight, I would be putting the heating on much earlier if I was actually working in the kitchen at the moment, because, you know, I come down and it's 15, 16. But in my little dining room, this used to be the dining room, where I work, I've got a radiator and the door shut, and even though the rest of the house might be at 15, 16, according to the thermostat, in here it will be 18, 19, so that's fine. Right, so Aaron's asking James how his railway's doing. Oswestry Road TMD. Hi Kathy, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you too. Good to have you with us. James is replying to Aaronville. Slowly, it's been too cold to go to the shed this weekend as it takes ages to heal. This is bad editing, I didn't take myself out. So these are the light strips. It took me a while to get the spacing right. The first set didn't actually space properly, and I think it just wasn't lining up with the LED strips. So LED strips come with a certain number of LEDs per meter. They're fairly standard, there's 2 or 3, 60 being the ones that I've mostly got. So I had to put in everything here, really, and you can see all of this now needs to be done to get those threaded rods in, and this is me talking about it for a Patreon video, I think. I do a weekly Patreon YouTube channel members video, so if you're a paid supporter through those, you'll get weekly updates on things like Junk Room City, or, you know, I did one on displacement modifiers the other day, and just with various people. Yeah, this is sped up. I know I'm a fast talker, but I'm not this fast. I don't blink that often, honest. James says, but he's completed the timetable for a 00 gauge 7 layout. That's cool. That's really cool. Is that the timetable to do it? Oh, that's the timetable to run it, isn't it? And that's. So James, can I see via your YouTube channel? My baseboard is nearly complete. My carpenter friend needs to visit next 3 Tuesday, then I can start ordering cork and laying the 009 track. That is very exciting, laying track stage. That's when it all becomes real. That's when projects actually get daunting, because suddenly there's so much to do. Thanks, Emily, saying it looks good. This is actually going to completely change in a minute. So, one of the things, you can see me wobbling the shelves and the threaded rod and why it is useful to have. And one of the things, as I was working on this, now I've done model railways, and I know you can't reach more than 2 foot. I know you can't reach more than 2 foot. And this is 3 foot deep because my lava is 3 foot deep. But with the best will in the world, I cannot reach more than 2 foot. And I certainly can't reach something at the end of 3 foot. So if I want to put my arm to the back there, I have to be able to get into that circle. But there's going to be solid shelves beneath. So what am I going to do? This is really bad, isn't it? You know, I know all this and I've designed myself into a corner. What's worse is I've actually got, I put a lot more time into filling the ring that I've got there, and I've done more prints. I've done the whole ceiling prints, and I knew I couldn't reach the back. As it was, with what I do now, I still struggled to reach the back on the 4 foot section, which has got a slightly longer section. And it wasn't that I couldn't reach the back, it's I was trying to screw into the back and trying to hold a screw on the top 2 shelves, or the sort of more tall distant shelves, where I put all the shelves in when I was screwing them on finally. Whereas I would always plan to do the top and go down. But actually I'd put them all on to make sure if I needed to wiggle at all, or anyway, I put all the shelves on to check it before I screwed them in, and it was a real struggle. If I had not changed this now, I would never have actually been able to use this, because it would have been too deep. And the idea was I was going to slide in foot at a time sections, but the reality of it was it just wasn't going to work. It was never going to work. So I thought about it. I threw all my 3D prints in the bin, every one that I'd done. So all that work that I'd spent will get reused, to be fair. The ceilings will get reused. They're going to get tweaked, but all the dross that went on top, that'll probably get reused. I had a lot of thoughts about how well they printed and how well they didn't print. I did them smaller so they'd fit on the bamboo, and discovered that 250 by 250 doesn't actually fit on your bamboo, because there's a corner you can't use. Annoying. So I hadn't printed all of the whole ceiling because the bigger sort of bits were stuck waiting, and I decided I was going to cut it out and I was going to make a U shape. Now I gone with a hole because Coruscant, which is the inspiration for this, has holes going down into it. But there comes a point where practicality has to take over from concept, because the concept art can look as great as you like, and you can fly through it in a video game and go, oh, I flew up a circle out of Coruscant. But it doesn't help if you can't reach the back. It really doesn't. So this is the cold day. This is the day with gloves, the hood up, coat on, cold toes. And this is me cutting every single, I didn't record every single shelf, you'll be glad to know, every single shelf into a U. Well, it's a bit easier to cut. It's actually not easy on bins because things slide and stuff. But this is me cutting, always away from me, U's. And now I can walk into this U. Instead of doing holes that every shelf has to go in at once, I drilled the holes and I cut slots. So I can now slide the threaded rod in afterwards and have a slot. And halfway down, because my threaded rods are all 1 metre in length, and this is going to be 2 metres high at least. So halfway down, when I needed to go to, cool, picture of me, I'm over the top of the only exciting thing happening in this video. Look at that. I'm threading a nut. Oh, that was worth putting on YouTube, wasn't it? I did a lot of nut threading. The only thing was halfway down, what did I do? Because I had an overlap, and I actually cut a second slot and did a second short threaded rod in the middle on, I actually only needed it on the one side. On the other side I was going to do it and I cut the 2 slots, but actually the one at 1 metre was long enough to get all the way down. So I did that instead. So now I can put the threaded rods on and off whenever I want. So if I want to change a shelf, I'm going to make the surround that's a 3D print. I don't actually know where to put myself. Probably over here. Let's put me over here. Shove me off there. So now if there's a... These are a pain to get up because they're 4 foot long and it's just getting your hands to work and whatever. So now if I want to move a shelf, it's easier. Yeah, it's a few dents in the frame. Oh yeah, I'm really good. So there we go. So back to chat while you watch me try and get a 4 foot frame in here. So James is saying to Erenville, he hasn't uploaded anything in a long time. When he does, it tends to go on PeerTube, but he has a Flickr account to which he posts regular photos. So I don't know if I actually think I've seen yours, but I will have to look now. And James is back. Glad to hear your baseball's coming on. Kathy is right about the track laying stage being when things get real. Oh yes. And you can't move it as easily after that. James says you need a grab arm for reaching in there. It's not the reaching in. It's like the, I want to rearrange something. So Ravenson expresses, I'm from Germany and I'm very confused about British scale. What is 009? Well, I'd answer it, but I suspect chat's already done it. So it's 00 gauge, 1 to 76 on 9mm across track, which is N scale. So basically, yeah, narrow. That's exactly what James says. Erenville, yes, getting real. Rather than just talking about the model railway, it's going to be scary. Also make general models as well, as I like being self-retired now. Got time, space and a bit of cash. I think, you know, I like to mix things up. I get a bit bored of doing the same thing all the time. You can probably tell that from what I do. So James says, time, cash and space is a combination for railway modelling. You need prodigious amounts of all three. Yes. Now, you can see there's a bit of warpage on these already, and they only just fit. The far end actually has a double set of clips on them, and it doesn't even go on to the second set of the double ones, and it was cut with an extra 12.5mm. But it at least fits easily on this side. By the time I get to the 3 foots, they're in the middle of the clips, which is a pain because then you want to screw into them to hold them on. So some of the screws are almost coming out the side of the shelf. But at least, I should have done this better. I should have screwed them as I went. But I was still really checking the concept and everything. And because I didn't screw as I went, I now had to screw everything in with all the other shelves in place because I put all that threaded rod on. Probably should have taken the threaded rod off and just redone it because it would have been far quicker than trying to reach the back corner and screw it in with the shelf beneath. But anyway, you live and learn. Russ says, nice to have a bit of cash, Erin. Isn't it just? So 00, so Erin's explaining a bit more about 00. It's 4mm to the foot. N scale is 2mm to the foot. Oswald Street, is that a helix you're building there? No, this is a sci-fi city. I understand it's not entirely obvious. This is a sci-fi city, and this is a... So I talked about it. So I think these giant holes go into the city because they need ventilation. So I think they're partly ventilation, and they also allow access for spaceships to get down to the lower levels, for traffic, because all their traffic's repulsors to go up and down easily. So it basically is a method for big things to get up and down through the cityscape. And the giant sort of cylinders going down in Coruscant, you see them in all the movies and Clone Wars and stuff like that. And if you've played Jedi Survivor, there's a whole set of levels at the start in Coruscant, and you fly out of it eventually, which is really fun. So there. And Digger says, no, it's not. So Jeffrey says, that's pretty clever. I hope you mean my threaded rod. Because actually the front of the U, and I'm sure at some point I will demonstrate it, is quite wobbly. And then you put the threaded rod on and there's no wobble. So I think it's really important. And the slots allow me to take it out. And what I'm going to do is design, I was hoping to get it done by now, but rubbish has taken over. I'm going to design a U-shaped piece that's a fascia that's like a column that goes over it, and then something that clips on the front that's part of the that will go the whole height up and down, that's like part of the cylinder. So one of the problems is when you look at it on the Clone Wars, the scale is very different. So, or even on any of the movies. So the scale basically says, oh, you know, a ship is a small door in this coming out. A landing pad is a small amount of it. Whereas here, a landing pad's a big amount of it. So they're a lot more open. So I'm going to have, you saw those holes, I'm going to have lights and strips around on every single level. but I'm not going to have, well, I presume I'm not going to have totally enclosed sections. I probably will have a lot more columns, and they will frame maybe pictures and stuff like that, but it's not going to be like the big doors that I had before. It's going to be a lot more open, and then the ring landing pad will be enclosed. So yeah. So Russ says, I like how they mix the metric system with Imperial in the UK, just like here in the US. Yeah, I went to the US once, and someone said to me, oh, that's about 100 miles away. And I said, oh, that's good. Then he had this faraway look for ages. And then he said, and said whatever the figure was in kilometres. And I looked at him and said, oh, could you say that in miles? I don't really know kilometres. And he looked at me and says, don't you use kilometres? I'm like, no, we use miles. He said, but aren't you metric? Yeah, but we still use miles. But in Canada, apparently, which is why he was doing it, because he was near the Canadian border, they use kilometres. So there we go. Okay, 009, it isn't that complicated, but 4 mil to the foot and 2 mil to the foot, that makes it more complicated. But end scale here, 1 to 160, and in the UK is maybe 1 to 146, but I also read about 144. Yeah, and O scale is different between the US and the UK, which is very confusing too. So we now hit a problem here. Actually, no, it's still a complete shelf. Once we get past this one, all the rest of the shelves are L-shaped, and there's nothing in the middle on the bottom one to hold it up. So that's where the threaded rod becomes really important, because at that point, this is hanging. And you can see here, this is the short one that connects the middle and top and middle, well, no, that two shelves there, it connects it. So it's between the top and the middle threaded rods. So there's double slots on those shelves. And then the ones beneath it all have to hang off that shelf that's there. But it itself doesn't have much to support the front except the threaded rod, and that then goes up to the one. And the only one that's really complete is the one that's got the metal all the way round, which is shelf 8 from the bottom counting up. And as a result, I put the supports, the clip holders, right with the threaded rods with just enough space to get the washers in. Yeah, it does have a lot more verticality than a typical model railway. Way more. Yay. But that's the space I have, considering my loft, which is where I had the model railway, is now a workshop. So Tim says 009 is similar to HOE. HOE is a slightly smaller scale, but you can run 009 and HOE together without it looking odd. So James says 7 mil to 1 foot is 1 to 43.5. In the US, though, it's 1 to 48. And I always think of O scale being 1 to 48 as a result. And James says very cyberpunk. Yes, there is going to be a lot of cyberpunk inspiration in this as well. Very cyberpunk neon feel on some of the levels. So Raverton Express says, today I bought a little passenger car in O 16.5, so that's 1 to 45, and runs on 16.5 mil tracks. Well, here it's called OE. I almost write it as Nully because OE can be easily read as O. People pronounce it as O, but it should be 0. Okay, 00 is 1 to 76, 009 is the narrow gauge version of 00. The buildings and everything is the same, 1 to 76. You can have 00 and 009 on the same layout. I did, Port de Norwich. Some also use end gauge for distant views, forced perspective, really cool. So at this point, I was just trying to thread the threaded rod on. It's only this right-hand side that's needed because they're L-shaped, and it's only the front of the U that needs supporting. But actually, the very, very bottom one doesn't go all the way across. Because I wanted it to be a cavern and to slope like this, it's a bit shorter. And it was just wobbling at the back in mid-air. In fact, there isn't a lot holding it at times, apart from the threaded rod at the front. So I actually then used the threaded rod that wasn't used on, I have it on the other side at the moment, but wasn't needed because I could take that threaded rod down a bit and it would cover the whole of the far side of the threaded rod. And I used that spare one because I didn't want to cut another one. The new stuff hadn't arrived. This side hasn't had its threaded rod yet because they hadn't arrived, and I think they've come now and I put them somewhere safe. And I used it at the back, so the only thing hanging, holding the back corner of the bottom shelf is actually a threaded rod hanging from the one above. And I didn't do that on a slot. I just did it on a whatever because it can come out the bottom if I need it to. So HO is 1 to 87, mostly used outside the UK, like in Miniature Wonderland. The whole of the US is 1 to 87. That's what I modelled in. So actually that was my main modelling scale. A model on that scale is quite the undertaking. This will be impressive. Thank you, James. It is. And I'm not planning to fill it all straight away. That is the impressive thing. It's for future expansion. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a minute. Where are we? 9:02. I don't want a repeat of November's live stream where suddenly we got to 10 o'clock and I was thinking it was about 9:30 and suddenly it was like, oh, okay. Normally null was 1 to 43.5 in Germany, but some companies didn't care about that and changed to 1 to 45, so it also got complicated in German too. Yeah, and then there's people who want, because 00 track is slightly narrow gauge to help it go around corners, so people then start doing weird track or weird locos that then fit the track. Yeah, Russ, I know 1 to 48 O scale because I used to do O in 30, or they've changed that now, haven't they, to something else. So anyway, how are you going to do the lighting for this? Asked James. So I think in this video, you should see the lighting for the very top. And I've got two 600mm square ceiling lights for offices that are the lighting at the top. Very, very stark lighting. It may not always be on. And they're just wired into transformers. I actually forgot to electrical wrap one of them, so I need to unplug it and wrap it. But it's up high and I can't even get to it when it's there. And they sit on top, but they don't come right to the front because I planned them when I was doing holes, so it didn't matter. So I'll probably end up putting some kind of gantry effect across and then putting some more LED strips at the front or something. But that's that. And then everything else is going to have lights in the ceiling as if each level is lit. And what I'm going to do is at the top it's going to be very clear, clean, cool white. And by the bottom it's going to get down to a really sunny golden white, so that I have a variety. And the spaceport level is going to use cob strips, which are a very even strip of light. And then the ones at the bottom are going to use sort of more variable lights. I'll put the odd tea light in, which is flickering or have a flickering effect somehow. Like there's broken lights, and there won't be as many. I'll use the cheaper wide spaced LED strips or something like that. I may even be able to use copper tape and 5mm LEDs, there's probably have a few of them, to create little bell lights. And there's going to be a lot darker looking. And the very bottom one is a temple. And then there's a sewer district. Sewers may have some red lights. I've actually bought some red lights, so there may be some red lights somewhere as well. You know, red light district, whatever, you know. So there we go. That's the idea. Okay, we disappeared off the top. So people are talking about different scales. There's all sorts of different scales. We've got 1 to 150 coming according to Ravenson Japanese end scale. Kato's doing the Glacier Express in it, and it runs on 9mm. So Tim says Bachmann have recently released a range of models called NG7, which is actually 016.5. Wow. That's quite a large frame, Aaronville says. Looking forward to how this big project progresses. Do you have drawings of this? I did go through them, I think it was 2 or 3 live streams ago. So yes is the short answer. It was 2 or 3 live streams ago, I think I brought it up. It probably, if you look back on my Instagram or Facebook, it's also on there, going back a bit. But I will, next time I do one of these, I'll remember to put it on the front of the video, because I think the next one will probably be more about sewer district, because that's where I'll have been spending the time. Okay, people are talking about, they're looking forward to the release from Bachmann of the Fletcher Jennings Loco, my excuse to dabble in 009. I think the Welsh quarries are beautiful little models in 009. Japanese Shinkansen is a standard gauge N160, local trains at N150. Oh, it's just scale. Yep, it's all weird, says James. Aaron, hi Aaron, haven't spoken to you for a couple of hours. At least you don't have a pet helping you. My cat just dropped out of the ceiling as I was assembling a cabinet right on the shelf I was trying to attach. Ooh, much as I'd love to have a cat, I don't think I could have them with all the models that I have in my house. My mum had a cat that was really old when she inherited it from my uncle, who was arthritic and couldn't jump up even onto a sofa. That's the only type of cat I would have. So yeah. Oh, and the fluff, as James says. The fluff. So Stephen said, the club my dad and I used to be members of had a lot of model engines in it, and they referred to O gauge as gauge naught, which is probably right. What's really funny, says Russ, is standard gauge in the US is 4'8.5" inches, but O scale is based on 5-foot gauge because somebody goofed a long time ago. Yeah. So this is the temple that's going in the bottom. It was off my last Kickstarter. And I was just checking the height for it, and obviously I need to tweak the height a bit to get it to fit. And there's slots on these, so if you see me running up and down, I'm just counting the slots. These pop out really easily, but they do need a little bit of pliers, I find, to get them in and out. And the sewer level's only 10 centimetres high, so it's like about 4 inches high. And 12 to half an inch, 12 mil, disappears into the height of the shelf. So that there is going to be at the back, and I'm going to use up some of my temples, and some of the bottom is, I've got loads of statues which might go through as features, but I think a lot of the temple's going to not make it into this just because I haven't got the space for it. Yeah. Fortunately, Lex Levels is not here tonight. She always says scale is just a suggestion. Well, that's why I like scenery. You don't have to be too exact. A tree could be a small tree in O, or a large tree in N. James, will there be much neon lighting inside the model? Oh yes, yeah. I really think there'll be loads of neon and stuff like that. I've got some ideas for some multicolour prints, signs, so that might be a Kickstarter later in the year, just a small one when I get around to it. James says illuminated sewers so that rats can see their way around. I was thinking more for inspection crews. I haven't done the illuminated bits yet. I haven't printed many of the tops at all. I've got test prints and that's it for the sewers. So at some point I need to print enough to make up a complete sewer. So I'll get the whatever's going. But at the moment I'm test printing, so I leave my printers not running so that I can just, you know, print when I test when I need it. So Russ says, to me, scale is the most important factor and detail second. I think it depends what you're doing. I think for people and doors and stuff like that, scale is really important. But for scenery, rock faces, scale becomes more fluid because natural things, you know, a small pebble, big rock. But yeah, inconsistent scales look terrible, said James. But actually, I quite like smaller scales towards the back if you can get away with it, because it can look quite, especially if it's an area with loads of trees, it can look a bit forced and give you a bit more depth. James says, ooh, will there be 3D printed rats for the sewer district? Yes. I actually have some loth cats and stuff like that printed that are sci-fi, and I have a few rancors and a Nexu or two, and the, whatever the other one's called, from the arena scene. So I've got some animals already printed. I think I'm going to have an exotic pet seller, and at the bottom I'm going to have a illegal pet seller for like gladiatorial animals. I'm going to design at some point a 6-legged, 6-eyed rat for the sewer that will be a sci-fi rat. I'm still deciding how big it will be. I might do a giant rat that you can print in FDM, and then smaller ones that have to be resin printed and get them supported. But yeah, Model U do good things like rats. Tamsin just checked, it was 3 streams ago. Thank you, Tamsin, you are a star. Thanks. Erinville, Kathy, do you have a 009 slate quarry layout? I had a 009 slate quarry layout. Tim Williams, who's on chat, now has it, Port Dinoic, and so he takes it out and shows it. So if you've seen it around, it'll be because Tim is showing it. I've never actually shown it, but it was on the Hornby show when that was on. So Erinville says, I'll go back 3 streams to check out the drawings. Thanks, they've moved on a little bit, but it's more or less there. Oh yeah, and here's Tim saying, Kathy did Port Dinoic, the slate wharf for shipping, now residing in my spare wardrobe. Eventually it will end up in the Bar Lake Railway Heritage Centre. Ah, so James remembers it from an exhibition, yeah. Tim has some really nice quarry layouts. If ever you get a chance to see them, do go and have a look, because they are really, really nice. And he does exciting things like Blondins, and which is the rope cableways, and the actual sort of inclines and stuff like that. They're really good. So yeah, and you'd have met Tim by the layout. So they've chatted. Thank you. It was done in 8 weeks, that layout, but the thought process and the previous model that got binned took several years. So yeah, Russ says scenery is an exception to scale. He agrees. Though what I do sometimes see is out of scale gravel, and I think ballast often looks a bit large sometimes. So yeah. So Ravenson, my cat Billy Bob was talking car above the G-scale layout I was running on the floor for Christmas, but the cats didn't play with it. Then they've been afraid of it. I've put a video. Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine cats would not like moving things, but I can also imagine that they'd like to go for it. So thanks, Tim. Tim says my layout's a work of art. So Russ Rockin' Railroad, he has an orange cat named Bob. Oh, all orange cats named Bob. Someone I follow on Instagram also has a cat named Bob. So you can see here how useful the U's are, because I can stand in them to work on the areas above. I can't do that when it was holes. I wouldn't have been able to get in at all because it looks so closed up. So I'm really satisfied now with the U's. And I've also now don't have to rush to get anything done because my U's are there, all the supports are in, all the shelves are in. You know, I don't have this, I must finish 4 shelves before I can put another shelf in feeling, and I don't feel as overwhelmed about that. But in a minute, I had this, and to be fair, moment I felt most daunted was when all the shelves were in, when everything was empty and I started to put things in. And I'm like, I've got all these disparate buildings from all these disparate Kickstarters that I've designed. How am I going to make it look good? And I was really struggling at that point more than anywhere. I'd lost the panicked, I must get on, I must get on, I must get on, which I'd had earlier. But instead I had the, well, now I have to get on, but there's no deadline, there's no forcing me to do it. And I was really struggling again with how big the project is. You know, I wanted to get it to a certain stage, and I've still got a third set of shelves to go down the right-hand side that's towards the camera. And those all need cutting, but they're going to cut round the landing pads. So the landing pads need to go onto them and be traced out. But I've got crates of stuff I haven't put out on it yet. All the temple stuff hasn't gone anywhere, partly because it's not really suitable for a lot of this. The lava hasn't gone out, so I've got 2 crates of lava stuff, but it's at the bottom of the U, so I don't want to put it out because I want to be able to take the U's out. So I probably could put some of them in. I didn't want to even think about putting things on the bottom. I've got a hanger that's going somewhere on the right that hasn't been sorted yet. It's in the bedroom, my bedroom at the moment, on the floor. You know, I've just got a lot of things to fix, and I've been worried now about how do I go from where I am to where I want to be. And that, I think, is the next big stage. I've now got all the 3D prints to design, but I'm back on Kickstarter mode. So the sewer district should be the one to get done, because obviously I'm doing sewers at the moment. And actually the giant rubbish heap that I've done is aimed at going at the bottom of the hole. And the idea is that the sewers will will empty out into the lava area. And there won't really be any liquid or anything dripping down. But there's sewers on both sides. So there's a sewer level on the far side and a sewer level on this side. And this side is all going to be rubbish. And it's going to tip out off the conveyor belts into the floor. That's the idea. Digger says the book will tell you all you need to know about scale and perspectives. Oh, is that my book? Because I have a book on how to model railway scenery, and it's on Amazon if you want to get it. Have to do these plugs occasionally. So, nope, still not losing control of time. That's good. HO trains and stuff, or cats are adorable bundles of fur. They may be adorable bundles of fur, but they also like to destroy stuff. Oh look, and there we are. Digger's put a link to my book. Thanks, Digger. 8 weeks. Wow. Gosh, 8 weeks. I don't know what it's 8 weeks for. But anyway, yes. So Tim says, my quarry layout, Quarrel Tegid, was in the December 2022 Railway Modeller. It's worth checking out. It's a really good layout. James, I've been building layouts since 2019. I haven't got to scenery yet. I used to do sections, so I would literally do scenery on one section and get it complete before moving on. James, at least you have a working layout more than I have. I mean, it was running when I started to do that. But you'll get there soon. You know, the important thing is just to get there and to do a little bit regularly. That's what it is. And then Emma's promising that he'll put up some YouTube videos. Yeah, don't rush. I've only got 2 crates of lava. Only a model will say this and be sane. I've got 2 crates of lava and the whole of the bed underneath has got lava underneath it. My friend who came to stay was like, you've got lava. You see how that fell off? That's because there's not enough overlap on these shelves. So this is me measuring it to make sure I've actually cut it the U out on the wrong side, which I hadn't, but it is just really fine. It's just too fine, really. I would have gone with an extra 10 mil if I'd known. And if I was cutting it myself, but there's no way I was going to manage to get 8 foot by 4 foot home, let alone. And 1 or 2 of these are probably just not quite squared on those clips anyway. Because either they can move because I've cut the lug too small, or I haven't cut the lug enough and they're actually slightly pointing out. So there we go. Sounds cool, says Russ. Right, James, Sue is emptying into lava. That will not smell good. No, it wouldn't, would it? So, okay. Check out the link, chap, says Digger. This is for my book. New meaning to phrase sewer gas. Yeah, I really should have edited myself out. But anyway, this is me talking it was another Patreon video, and I realised this morning, the reason these are like this is I'd missed out. I'd done a set, but they were the set for this year, and I'd missed out last year's set. So I had to go and add them in quickly this morning, and it takes a while to render out and stuff. So I was just worried I was going to lose it. So James Pets, I'm planning a micro layout this year, so I should be able to get scenery quite soon. I love micro layouts just for the ability to get them finished, for the ability to get on, and to get all the way to the end. And you're planning a full day night lighting automatically integrated into the timetable. That is going to be cool. I have actually been to layouts that have full day night lighting, and it's stunning. It's worth seeing. On this, I could use this drill driver, but it was way too big to fit into a lot of my shelves. So I ended up with this really small stubby screwdriver for the far side, and it really wasn't fun. This bit wasn't fun at all. Oh, N-scale micro layout. Based on a real location, my stag in South Wales. Oh, I've been there. In September 2017. My mum's from Neath, so my stag's not far from there. Aaronville, excellent. And DCC, steam or diesel? Yep. Well, if it's September 2017, I'm going to guess diesel. So Russ says he's been focusing on building kits and scenery. It's not run trains in a long time. My problem with my railway, and one of the reasons I fell out of love with it, is I just never ran any trains. I was just too busy doing like stuff. James, I'm sure scenery is very fun. I look forward to getting to that stage. Well, when you do, come ask me any questions. And yeah, I do look forward to people putting stuff on YouTube. I think, it's always good to have it there. As a Polite is saying, does anyone know where you can get a single HO motorcyclist figure? I planned a YT project with illuminated motorcycles in various quality levels, but without figures it doesn't make sense. That's a good question. I 3D print them is the trouble. And if I didn't have one, I'd make one. So I don't know, but you could always ask someone like Model U if you don't have one, and he scans real people. So he could probably get a friend to, when he's scanning, to dress up in leathers and put a helmet on and get scanned. So Tim says, Port de Norwich has adjustable lighting. I've been meaning to put it on a timer for dawn, daylight, dusk. I was originally, Tim, when I was on the fancy mode one, going to do a full day to night with lit RGB lighting. But when it came to it, I just ended up putting on those LED strips because they're just plain white, just because of time. So, oh yeah, and Digger also said check out some of the 3D printing places. Some take commissions. I don't even know what PeerTube is. I've never heard of it before, James. Erinville's, I'll also be building general models and dioramas as well. That's what I did, and then I ended up moving just to general models and not my railway anymore. Oh, Russ has got my scenery book. Thanks, Russ. And Digger says it's a really splendid book. Oh, I don't use RGB for day-night lighting, use warm cool instead. That's interesting. Most people for night use blue, and they just go to blue, so that you still get a light, but it feels like night, and it looked really good. So real daylight and moonlight is white. Yeah, but the blue looked good because it allowed you to see everything, but it felt like it was dark. Yeah, I get the Polite saying the scanned and printed figures are nice but way too expensive. James says the night is not blue, the dim is the night is dim, cool white. I get that. I just thought the blue looked really cool when I went there. Anyway, everyone has their own little foibles of what they like, and that's the beauty of doing your own layout. You can choose what you want and do it. So there we go. Martin's asking, are you going to do another Great Model Railway Challenge? I haven't heard anything, and the production company, I think over COVID, a lot of the staff got let go, so I really can't see it happening now. Well, they weren't staff, they were contractors. I really just can't see it happening now, I'm afraid. Which is a shame. Yeah, James says, we all have our preferences. I tend to prefer realism over impressionism, but others are different. Yeah, everyone has their favourites, and that's the important thing. So, Polite says, Dig, I had this idea too, but I haven't found anything yet. And Tamsin says, North Star Miniatures do sprues for Gaslands. One has a road bike, the other has a dirt bike. They're scaled for Hot Wheels, so should be about right for HO. That's interesting. And Tim says, Crowell Tegid has a yellow filter on the dawn dust light, and most of the buildings have lights as well. I did put some uplighters and coloured lights on the rock faces, just because. Well, why not? So you can see here, this one went a lot quicker because I was able just to screw it with the really quick dual drive. And these are just self-tapping wood screws, but they're 10mm. So they're really short because the shelf is only 12mm. And I don't know, I keep having to push the right-hand side down. And I don't know whether that's because this is the warp and the warp is up or down. And it's just, a lot of the wood was quite warped. So I think over time we'll settle it. What will really fix it is when I do the 3D prints, they're going to be square. And if they don't sit quite right, I will probably end up just adjusting the threaded rods at the front a bit or something, trying to get them to fit, because they're not going to really have much. There'll be a few mil space, just because you need to add a few mil into things to allow for like bumps in the wood or bits of paint build-up or whatever. Realistically, when I do this, the gap is going to be at sort of, I guess, hidden, because where the walls meet the ceiling is probably going to be the gap, and the ceiling bit will stick in front of the walls and the walls will go behind, and there'll be a like 2 or 3 mil gap if they need it to go up or down. So this is now really useful. Each of those shelves, the actual width with the circle is, some of them are only about this big. They're not big, so I can get a building and a small cameo, but it's going to be a lot of very small cameos, a lot of this, but then you don't want to overload it. So there's some really big buildings to go in, which you'll see going in a minute, and there's a lot of spaceport buildings. But what I also want is the lower levels to feel very cyberpunky, very gang. There's going to be people hanging around. Somewhere there's going to be a lot of clones, just because I've got a lot of clone figures and they're going to go on there. I've got a lot of 40mm figures as well, which are really annoying because most of my stuff's 35 or 1:48. And I might put them in just because, you know, may as well go in as not. If ever I want to play the game though, these ones have to be able to come out quite easily. And they're all on bases, so they don't look very realistic. So there will be a bit where things that are for this, do they go on a base or not? If they were for gameplay, yep, they need to go on a base. If they're for this, do they go on a base? Do they not go on a base? You know, I've got things that I've painted up, but they need a bit more work. I'm going to need a lot of figures. So I took a box to Solihull Scale Model Club of my 3D printed figures, and it's like 2 or 3 Papsicles who does cyberpunk-esque 28mm figures. They're sort of cyberpunk-esque all the way through to, you know, this guy's Aliens from Aliens, this guy's from something else, and they're recognisable, and people go, oh, I recognise this one. And I took this like really useful box of them, you know, a couple deep, and some of them got amazing hair, and I bought them for very much that sort of feeling of cyberpunk. And I did like 2 or 3 Kickstarters in a couple of months of his tribes, and had so many I stopped subscribing because I just had so many. And they took them away and said, oh, we'll paint some up for you. So hopefully I'll get some back from them. Digger says 1:64 is Hot Wheels. Yeah, I have a Hot Wheels, and it's in a 1:64, which is S scale from Railways. Yeah, they may be too big, but if you can get a 3D print aimed at the same thing, you'll be able to shrink it. Warped is like normal land. Things only level if man-made buildings sit on it. Well, yeah, this is a man-made sci-fi city, but, you know, who knows? So stating the obvious says, Prizer and Nock do motorcycles with riders. Russ, nature is warped and asymmetrical. Yes, very true. Things not for a game, no base, I imagine. Yeah, I think that'll be it. I mean, I have a lot not for a game. Some of the stuff gets put on bases to paint, but I could knock it off. Aaronville said, can you model working lifts, etc. in the U-holes you made? I am going to do working lifts. That's elevators, for those people who don't know what a lift is, because you live in a different country. And I'm debating, I was actually thinking of putting a cargo lift on the far end on the left, because that's where the cargo area for the spaceport's going to be, and it'll be on the outside. I've got 2 or 3 things I plan to do that are going to be moving. And these are long-term projects, one of which is lifts. Now the lifts, they don't generally go in the U. Inside that U, I'm going to have spaceships hanging on fishing line, is the word I'm looking for, so that it doesn't really show. And they're going to be hanging up and down. You'll see the spaceships in a bit. I've got loads of toy spaceships that are, you know, this sort of size. And I've got some bigger ones, and they're going to hang on fishing line. Now you've said it, I'm wondering if I could put the fishing line on a winch and wind it up and wind it down so it looks like my spaceships are coming up and down. I could do. So I could think about that. And then, you know, I need Arduino. And actually the gap around the front probably wouldn't be a problem then, but I'm going to run a few gantries across. And it could technically do that. Actual lifts, I'm going to stagger them a little, so there'll be maybe one on the front going down 3 or 4 levels. Maybe I could have one sticking out, but because these in Coruscant are spaceship and ventilation, I haven't particularly thought about it. So that's an idea I hadn't thought of. So I'll have to think whether I can or not. And the answer is probably I can. I'll have a think about it, but it's a good idea. Thank you. Yeah. But there's definitely going to be lifts somewhere. They might be on the right-hand side. Oh, it's got the little knobbly bit. That's knobbled because, oh, there's the lights on as I've got them at the moment. I can't put the far one on all the way over where it should go because it falls over. There isn't enough supporting it. Oh, and this is me putting stuff on. So I'm going to move me over here because not much is happening over here. It's all happening down there. Yeah, James, bases don't look good, but needed for use in games. That's very true. And sadly, the games I play, you can't put a clear acrylic base on. It just doesn't work. Kathy, you can on working lifts, etc. in the U-holes you made. I said that, read that already. Yeah, I've got plans. I'm not sure how to do the lifts yet. That's why I'm thinking of actually doing them at the front, because I've got a metal bar there, which I could effectively magnet some stuff onto. And I'm going to be magneting some of the faces onto it anyway. Stating, as Polite says, yes, there's most of them from Prize, but I can only use the figures, not the many motorbikes. There isn't much here that is of any use for my project. Kathy, yes, have moving spaceships and cargo lifts and escalators. Yes, definitely. It needs movement. I don't have railways. I would like to do some space railways as well. So let's just talk about what I've got plans for animation. But first, I just need to lubricate the throat, and it's only green tea. So I have 2 Neptune 3s that probably need whole new extruders. And when I upgraded to bamboos, they moved out to make space, and they're currently on the heated kitchen floor. And I would like to take the ZX frame off them and have some kind of moving cargo gantry with it. So if you imagine, they can come up and go back and forth. Now, I've done this before. I've got one down here which was a prototype for Savannah Spaceport the first time I did it for the Travellers video I did on YouTube several years ago now. And I used a belt, and I didn't actually use the Z screws to go up or down. But what I'd like to do is keep everything more or less on the base plate, and maybe cut up the base plate somehow or mount it somehow, and keep the motors more or less in place, and have the up and down, side to side action on it, and then have something maybe able to run a cable from the Z screw so it can go up, and it'll probably just move across and down. So it'll pick it up, move across and put it back down again, I think. So I'd like that. I've got 2 of those, so I could have a couple of them in different places. We'll do different things with them. And it also gives me a couple of Z screws. I've also got 2 old 3D printers that, John, I didn't know whether you wanted my old, they are really old, but my old RGB Mars, I think it's an original Mars, and a Nova Whale 3D, both of which are probably so old and slow now you wouldn't use them. And I'm wondering about using those as Z screws of something. So I could have a lift go a short distance on some of those as well. You know, if it's in between 2 levels, it could go up on those. But then I need to think how I'm going to mount that and everything. Now with the Neptune 3s, what I learnt when I did this last time, and it was my Anycubic Mega i3, I think, that was donated to that. This is a lot of the Spaceport models just out, and my spaceships that I have. And, you know, you can see the height. There's plenty of height on these. I wanted to feel claustrophobic, but the ring landing pad I had real problems with because it just fell over all the time here. But, and I've now got a lot of the crates underneath and some too tall stuff, you know, in the corner there. That's a room vacuum I was pointing at, which is useful for keeping dust down. So I need to decide what I'm going to do with the rings, because they need a solid base and they're going to have to slide in and out if I want to get to the back to do U stuff. Or do I make them into ovals and put some straights in between? You know, and I've got all these landing pads to put in as well. So, and this corner here. So there's a lot still to go on this that I need to decide what goes where. And these are all just piled up for now to get them out of various boxes because I was running out of space. And yeah, you can see how the difference in wobble is when I put something on. And yeah, I walk into that every time, but I'll put a gantry over it or something. Yeah, so it's quite cool. I found the square washers in the end, which are more useful perhaps for putting things round. So yeah, and the other thing, so those are the lights. It's very stark, which might be why, I have no idea what I'm trying to say there. It's very stark, which might be why those lights aren't actually on permanently. They may come on and go off on like a night-day cycle. We'll have to see. I think they cast too much light, but you know, I can easily put a filter over them. They're on or off. You know, they're not dimmable, I don't think. They're just mains, so I haven't tried putting a rheostat on or anything on either side. Because they're office lights, they're not supposed to be anything but on or off, and I didn't buy the dimmable versions. So you can definitely see that there's some work to do tweaking on the lighting. They feel a bit bright, the levels, but it is just at the front, and it may be by the time I've put a fascia on and stuff like, and given it more of that feel. I also, the extension leads I had didn't reach the ground, so the plugs are all on the bookshelf for now, which actually makes me feel a bit better. And then that is just one button press and the lights go off, but I've still got to sort out what happens to the room light. So that then is where I am so far on that project. So going back to the 3D printers, the last time I used it, I tried to use the motherboard that came on the printer, and I went down a complete rabbit hole with it. It just did not work. In the end, I ended up using an Arduino that's still in there, I think, and writing a code using some drivers. I've got these, I bought some boards that were drivers for the motors. They're stepper motors, aren't they? And all that kind of stuff. So I've got loads and loads of little servo motors. So I would like to do some animations with them. But the other thing I was thinking of is, I've got these here. I've got these landing pads, and I've got a Y-axis move that actually pushes your landing pad out. And I was trying to work out if I could actually put a landing pad onto a Neptune 3 Pro build plate and have it moving back and forth somehow to come out to get people and then to go back in. But I wasn't sure if it'd be too tall. But again, these are all future projects. So definitely, there's a lot of issues around lighting. I'd like to do I'd like to do a whole Kickstarter on signs, to do with advertising signs, holographic signs. I mean, you've got everything from LED fans, which, are hard. I'd like a small LED fan. They all seem quite big. But you've got everything from LED fans, which, if you don't know what they are, basically you put a line of LEDs and spin them, and they create a pattern which has a picture on it. And someone had done, I think it was Smuggler's Room, had done, or had from somewhere, the one of Princess Leia. They had that as a holographic LED. And because the LED, the fan bit, the blade, is moving so fast, you don't really see it. You just see the LED. But you can also do things like, is it Potter's Ghost? Have I just made that up? Potter's Ghost, is it? The thing where it reflects onto glass. I'd like some mirrors to perhaps extend the scenes. These are all good model railroad tricks, having mirrors extending scenes at the sides. They just have to be angled so you can't see in them. I'd also like, I've got a lot of flickering tea lights, so I think the temple level is going to have, I'm going to take them out of something I've got them in at the moment that I'm not going to use, which are from Jurassic Park diorama, and they're all wired up already with little orange lights. I'm going to remount them probably somehow into the temple level, which is just a small L, it's the smallest L, and have that sort of hidden temple at the bottom that no one knows is there, and just have a few peeks into it. And I'm going to hopefully have those there as torches that light up as you go along, or come on. I would also like, so the back of that has LED in the columns that require button press every time it turns on. It won't stay on that particular set of fairy lights. You have to press the button for it to come on. And then I thought to myself, actually, wouldn't it be fun is if you could come in and on that front fascia, so all of that front, all of the shelf front and all the uprights are eventually going to get like stone at the bottom, and then like the foundations of buildings, and then like, sci-fi building-esque fronts, and then the lifts and stuff like that. And I was thinking it'd be really nice if you could have locations for buttons where you press it and an effect happens. You see it a lot in places like Miniature Wonderland, but certainly for lighting, it wouldn't be much more hassle to put a button in. What I want is them all to turn off, and they're going to be on 2 or 3 plugs. And I've got these towers you saw, which are 12 plugs, and they've already got 4 USB ports, but I'm actually going to plug in USB hubs, because then I can put in, sometimes you can only get 1 or 2 big strips on, but if I've got smaller lights, I can plug them in on a 5 amp. So I'm tempting to buy 5 volt even, 5 volt 3 amp USB LED strips, so I can do them all on that, because A, it creates less heat if it's a 5 volt LED strip, and B, is less electrical problems if it's lower voltage. So that's the idea, that I can get loads of animation and movement in there. which is why being able to see it all and having quite short. I mean, even the longest bit now is probably only about that big. You know, it wasn't hard to get my arm in. It was just uncomfortable to reach up and round and get into a screw while holding the screw on my non-magnetic screwdriver, trying to self-tap into the shelf above. But actually, once that was all sorted, I'll be able to get in there to put everything that I want in. Also, I've got a whole set of fans for computers that I bought for projects and didn't use. And what I'd like to do is put those in strategic places, like maybe at the back, maybe have some red LEDs behind so you can see they're lit behind, because they're going to be hidden eventually. And then when they turn on, have some streamers that come out so it looks like they're running. They're like 3,200 RPM, PWM input fans, 3-line. And I've got some PWM modules, so I need to go back and brush up on Arduinos for those to work out how exactly I would get them to work, because I haven't used an Arduino in years now. And I would like to slow them down a bit, but I really, if they can't slow down, then they'll be, like if you play video games, and I've just played Outlaws, it's a trope in video games that you have to clamber up the wall and then jump across a fan from this wall to this wall, and the fan comes on timed intervals, and if you jump at the wrong point, you go shoop backwards off the fan, fly back and die. And then you have to do probably, you know, the 20 minutes before that to get to the fan, to go past and fly off and die. So anyway, fans coming on is actually with yellow bars, so you know that you should walk across there. Is actually not an unusual sci-fi trope in video games, and I wouldn't mind a bank of, say, you know, 4 or 5 of these high coming on. They're the small ones, and looking like, you know, they're gonna blow you off, and maybe have someone hanging there and someone else on a little bit of springiness flying off it or something. I don't know. So yeah, I'm gonna have some fun little things like that in there as well. I was looking at my Easy Peel oranges, well, they're clementines, bag, and thinking, I wonder if I could use the red net from that to make those streamers, whether they would hang down and then stream out properly with those fans, whether there's enough oomph on them. So anyway, that is definitely a load of projects, none of which will be got to this year, just to set expectations, but all of which are planned. What I want this year is to get the spaceport shelves done and the sewer district shelves done. So Aaronville says, yes, we have moving spaceships and cargo lifts and escalators. Woohoo! So Polite says he'll keep looking anyway, so thanks for everyone's help on the motorcyclists. Raymondson Express says, when you need help with your elevator, I was an engineer for elevators. Oh, that's cool to know, because I haven't actually decided whether I want them on a threaded rod that I just screw them up or down and turn it, or whether I want them on basically a hanging one like the normal ones on cables, threads. We'll see. We'll see. I might do both. Russ says, are you a Star Wars, Star Trek fan, Kathy? So I was a Trekkie as a child over Warzy, because frankly, it came out in 79 and I was 6 in the UK. It was 78, I think, in the US, but it was 79 in the UK. Just, it was right over Christmas, New Year. And I didn't watch it till the early 80s. And I thought Luke was a whiny what's-it. I didn't need girl power in Leia. And I was too young to really appreciate Han's charms. So I enjoyed it, but I wasn't really a Warzy. And then I was the wrong age when the prequels came out. I really became a huge Star Wars fan. And I read the books when I was younger. I actually just rebought and I'm still rereading the Han Solo Young Adventure book that came out in 1979 or something, you know, young Han Solo. And I really liked some of it, you know, it was great. But I would watch more TV than movies, and Star Trek was TV, and I grew up on the original series, and then the Next Generation came out when I was at, I don't know. I never watched the first series for years, watched them all again over lockdown, but really what sold me on Star Wars was the Clone Wars, and I would say I became a huge Star Wars fan after the Clone Wars. So, but I was always a fan, I just wasn't a huge Star Wars fan. But with The Mandalorian and then the Clone Wars final season and everything, I really did become much more of a Star Wars fan. So now I'd say I'm more of a Warsy than a Trekkie. But I think that reflects where both franchises are today. And actually, I really grew up on Doctor Who and Blake Seven. We were rewatching Doctor Who from the start on iPlayer. And I think we're in the middle of Tom Baker at the moment. So there we go. Russ says, are you going to disguise your all-thread rods? Pepper's Ghost, not Potter's Ghost. I knew it was wrong. Thank you, stating. Russ, are you going to disguise your all-thread rods? Do you mean the ones that are holding the shelves up, in which case the answer is yes, they're going to have like columns around them, which will be easy to click in and out to get at the rod should I need to tighten it? Or do you, I just need to know how thick my floor is before I finalise those and do them, but they're going to be one of the next things I do. Or do you mean my ones for the 3D printers being converted into cargo lifts, in which case, maybe, probably. Morning, Monique. Great to have you with us. I'm afraid there's only about 10 minutes left, but it's good that you got here. Though you're not late, you're just on a different time zone. Russ, I have 3 lifetimes of projects to do. I actually got rid of 100 crates of railway stuff, including mostly kits and things of Craftsman kits that I'm never going to build. And I've got a load of Gundam stuff here I'm never going to build, but yeah. Ravenson Express says, elevator with cables and counterweight can be moved with a tiny motor. You just have to work the friction when it is well balanced. So I guess I could do that. And it would probably work really well. I guess my worry is, I don't think Star Wars has cables, but then it does. It does have cables because you see them catch them in the last movie, don't they? Or do they? I'm going to have to watch that last movie with the spaceship because gravity was changing, the last of the Revenge of the Sith, and see whether there were cables in that lift shaft when they went there. They're always running around lift shafts. I just wonder how sci-fi having a elevator with a cable is and a counterweight. That's just the only thing bugging me, is whether I, and then you can't really hide them, where a sort of a threaded rod, I've got 6mm threaded rod, a meter, and I want to stagger them around so I could have 2 or 3 of them running. But you know, a threaded rod could theoretically look more sci-fi. I don't know. Still debating that, and it's a long way to go. John, you can buy PC fans with a controller in the cable to set different speeds, so the ones you've got should be adjustable. It just needs a PWM input. They're like a little plug with 3 cables, red, black, and data, I believe, and that I think sets it all. So I need to have, and I've got a PWM controller board for the Arduino. I just need to get the Arduino program to run them, I think. But yes. Was it 77, Tamsin? Okay. Star Wars was released in the UK around Christmas of 77. I thought I was 6 when it came out. Confused. Anyway, whenever it was, I was, yeah. I wasn't watching it at the cinema at that age. I was 6, I think, when it came out. And I was born in 73, which is why I think it was. I do remember quite vividly making my dad buy a small portable TV to go on the boat for when it first came on TV. And we had a narrowboat. We were on it for 3 weeks in the summer. And we moored somewhere that had very bad reception. So it was Star Wars with snow. And we had to run the engine halfway through because the batteries were going. So I definitely remember that. So anyway, Junkroom City, just a quick catch up on other news. I revamped my website very quickly, really. I need a better front photo. I'm not happy with it, but by all means, pop over there and have a look. Go and have a look and tell me what you think, because it's a bit simpler now. The blog is all there, it's just hidden. So if you come through on a blog, you'll find it and you'll get into it, and all the links within it still work, but it's not referenced anywhere. And really, I just reference shop, portfolio and newsletter. There is an about me, which if you click behind the first page, you'll find, but it's mostly about sort of, and maybe I need to put the social media more prevalent. It's a 1-page, really simple front page. I wanted to try something really simple. It is not simple to do a 1-picture front page. It took me ages to work out how. It really isn't as simple as you think it should be. But anyway, I've got that there, and it's there. I also will be putting the Cadau Desert Temple Moon on onto My Mini Factory as a shop as separate items soon-ish, once I've done my VAT return for the last quarter. And I need to get on and carry on designing the sewer district. So the sewers are more or less done. The air vents are done. They're a bit simpler. They're just clipped together. I had this set from David Sheff, and this is from one of his Kickstarters, and it bent. So I used this as inspiration to make a far more classic set, because mine are a classic air vent, that's what it looks like. You might find it today, which people are forever crawling through. It's not that big, but it's not that small either, because you have to get minis in it for a game. So that was definitely very much there. I'm doing rubbish at the moment, trash, garbage, whatever. And the pile is about this big. It's as big as you can get on a bamboo, so maybe it's that big. It's a massive pile. And that's going to be at the bottom of the U on the lava factory side. And then there's a smaller pile of rubbish, exactly the same, but I'll just put it the other way around to go with it. And what I'd like to do is to design some falling rubbish. So I'm going to get some of my rubbish bits and put a hole through them all, and then I'm going to put a fishing line through it. So I need to do that as well. So on the last few minutes, what else have we got? So Tamsin saw it in the cinema early 78. That's cool, Tamsin. That's really cool. I just was too young. I was only born in 73, so I wouldn't have been old enough. I think the first thing I saw was Warlords of Atlantis, because it was the only thing on. So Valley's 56 XX. I saw Star Wars on the second day it came out, and every other Star Wars film on the first day. I do love Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I prefer its animation to anything. I think it's my favourite Star Wars moments are generally in the animations. I really adored in the Clone Wars. And to me, the best Star Wars are the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars, and I cry every time I see it. You have to have watched enough of the Star Wars to care about the characters that were there. If you were just to go and watch the last 4 episodes now, it would be meaningless because you wouldn't understand the journey. But after you've watched 100 episodes of it already, and then you watch that, and it's just brilliant. James says it's sad to see traditional blogs slowly dying. It is and it isn't. I used to do them. They're a lot of work, and I've really stopped doing most things apart from quick snaps for social media. And I don't do social media as much as I should. It is sad, and I do like a good blog site when I go back. They're much easier to look through than Facebook, which is rubbish, and I hate Facebook and I never go on it. You can't find anything. You find a Google search that takes you to Facebook, and then it doesn't take you to the actual page that was in the search page. Then you can't find the picture that was on it, and it's a nightmare. So blogs are much better for that. So yeah, it is sad. I miss forums too. I actually spend most of my time on Discord, which is more forum-like in my view, because I really like the feel of Discord. So if you want to find me, Discord's the place to find me. Tim says, it might be a bit late now, but if you need a WordPress advice, just let me know. Thanks, Tim. I've actually had my site set up with WordPress for 10 years or so, I guess. So yeah. Valley says it was, we're back to Star Wars, but thank you. Yes, I may well need it in future. Valley's 56 XX. It was released in cities across the UK on 29th of January 78. Yeah, I know there's always a difference. People say it was different, but yeah. The last minutes of the end of Rebels is superb animation. It is another good series. Anyway, Stephen says, gotta go, almost bedtime, good night. So good night, Stephen. And then we've got a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to say, I'm also on Patreon. Most of my patrons are for people who've paid, but it's a very cheap bottom there, but you can go on free and you'll see some stuff. And I do have a newsletter. If you haven't signed up to my newsletter and you want to see things, it's really infrequent. It's only really frequent when I'm about to do a Kickstarter and I have something to say. So I try not to say and inundate people, but my newsletter as well. So if you go on my website, kathymillett.co.uk, have a look and see what you think of it. It needs a bit of work and tender loving care, but if you look at that as a newsletter sign up page, and if you sign up you get the free gifts from all of the previous Kickstarters. There's quite a bit on there now. There's 5 or 6 Kickstarters, so feel free to go and have a look at that. And you know, I don't keep the newsletter anywhere, so once it's out there, it's out there. I used to put it on the website as a news page, but it was just a hassle. So I'm trying to streamline where I spend my time and what actually is beneficial. So it's hard to work out. I don't get that many views on my website. It actually costs quite a bit. And it generally points to other places for all the shops. So I'm still working it all out. It is important to have a website. I think it's really important to have an email list because they're actually your emails as opposed to social media, which are Facebook's, or My Mini Factories, which are My Mini Factories names. It is useful to have your own names. So I always like to have the newsletter, but don't really write very much. Anyway, there we go. And then a forward look for the year in the last 2 minutes. So we've got Sewer District coming, which is probably my next Kickstarter. I'm also in the evenings, I'm going to go back to working in the evenings, going to be looking at a forward operating base for Halo Flashpoint. I've got it's going to be quite a challenge because it's all 3-inch cubes. This is a 3-inch cube. This is actually a grid forged 3-inch cube. Well, it's a 3-inch base. Tamsin will know what grid forge is, but Second Dynasty just did a frontier for grid forge, and it's like dungeon blocks but slightly more precise. And this is the number 3 one that you know, you can click in and it will sort of hold upside down probably the first 20 times you do it, and then after that it won't. But you can choose different tolerances for different printers if you want them tight or if you want them loose, and it's aimed at RPG people who want to be able to swap their tiles a lot. So I might do that for a 24-inch base for it and do some fob bases, forward operating base, and but otherwise it will be a typical forward operating base. And then after that is Market District, and I've still got Mall's Scimitar partly done from a Christmas project last year, not this year, just gone, the year before. So I've got a lot of projects coming up, so it's definitely markets after sewers on the main sort of theme. And Russ has just asked, what's Kickstarter? It's a way of selling the files. You do it through Kickstarter, people back you. The more people you get back you, the more extra models you add in, so the bigger the files that you get. So they're really a useful way, because my last one didn't do that well. It was actually my worst one ever. And as a result, I didn't do a lot of extra stretch goals, but I didn't do a lot of modelling that then wasn't needed. Whereas my first one, I'd modelled everything beforehand. And generally, if I've got models that are related, they just come out on My Mini Factory as a sort of add-on or an extra afterwards, and I sell them. But actually, with the temple, I made them as we breached them, and it worked really well. So that's probably what I'm going to do next time, is actually do them as I go. I'm not easy to get to the internet while I'm here without losing all my Windows tabs in, but I think Digger can probably post it, or I'll put a link in the right minute left. I was just about to sign off. Hang on, folks. Let me just add. Trouble is, My Mini Factory has to be the slowest website ever. Frontiers. I've clicked the button. In an hour, it will. Let's see if I can get you all back up. There you are. Grid Forge, right. Ends June 13th. Copy link. Is this going to be the right link? Okay, that will probably take you there. Grid Forge, it's from Second Dynasty. They're really great. Ben's been such a support to me. Really always try and support them where possible. So there we are. It ends January 13th, so it ends tomorrow. I thought maybe it had already ended. And it's great if you want sci-fi tiles for RPG. He's converting a lot of his ships to them, so you can change over the interiors of the ships as you play different games. You don't have to pull them apart to redo the floors. I'm probably going to do it more for terrain bases than for actual structures, but I will do the option of open lock or grid forge for people who want it. So there we go. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm 2 minutes over and really appreciate your support as ever. See you next time, where I think we'll be talking sewers, rubbish, garbage and trash. Anyway, have a great one. Happy 2025. Thanks for all your support. Bye.